Hi, thanks everybody for coming. I'm excited to introduce Fran Wickner. She has a PhD in clinical psychology and an MA in counseling psychology, and she's been in private practice since 1984, specializing in solution-focused brief therapy with individuals, couples, families, and adolescents. Dr. Wicker's teaching credentials include presenting at conferences, clinics, and universities such as LMFT's annual conference, San Francisco Psychological Association, JFK University, Argosy University, CAMFT, and many others. She has been an adjunct faculty at the graduate level for the last 20 years.
It's funny, I always talk so loud. I'll have to talk softer than I'm used to talking. First of all, you guys have the best spread I have ever had, as a presenter in 30 years of presenting. And I was telling your board that you should put that on your website. You would have like, I mean, I'll come from the East Bay to be a RECAMFT member just to eat here. So anyway, thank you, Barb, for the intro. Just to make sure everybody has stuff so I don't have to be scrambling. This is the packet that'll be on the PowerPoint. And if you don't have one, there's some extra at Barbara's table. There's some extra right there. And I'll do my... Gail, don't bing me. I'll give my 2-second public service. I'm just teasing. So, beside doing brief therapy, I do other things like help therapists make money. And I know some of you, because you said, "Hi, Fran, I've come to your workshops," or "I bought your packets." This has a little bit about my consultation. If you ever need to know anything about how to actually make money being a therapist, what a strange concept. You should have this one, and that's on the table, or on your table. I'm doing a workshop on getting on insurance panels in January, and if you don't want to come to the East Bay, I have these online where you could just buy it, download it, and then there's like 60, I don't know how many pages of really obsessive-compulsive detail of how to get on managed care. And then the last thing that to me would be the most fun ever to present about all the time is how to prevent burnout and take a career break. If you're under 30, you could close your eyes and ears for a minute, but I've been doing, this will be my 3rd career break this year, and I have it completely down on how to do it and not lose your clients and literally spend none of your retirement money. It's just, I can't believe I've got this down so well. So I presented at conferences that haven't been therapy conferences on this, but I do consultations of this to therapists also. So here's an article that I had published about career breaks, and I'm going to be doing a workshop, but it's only an hour, but if you're interested, you could call me. We could do consultations by phone. And I'm totally a big fan of doing career breaks. I've been a therapist since my early 20s. I just knew I loved this and started it right away. And I'm in my 60s now, and I love my job, and I think it's because I'm doing career breaks. And like a lot of you, I'm not going to retire. I don't know when I would or why I would, but this will keep me working and not getting burnt out, because in March, I'm leaving for 3.5 months to live in Italy, so for like no money, which I will tell you about another time. So today's workshop is on solution-focused brief therapy. Those of you who are county people know this, that, and in private practice you might have noticed too, not all of our clients can come in, sit down for long-term therapy and say, "Hey therapist, I'm here. Every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, I'm showing up, and we are going to explore my past, and how we can make it, everything good and what's going on. And we're just going to sit together for a long time, and I'm going to keep paying you money, and we'll just keep working on this." People who have jobs that aren't like our jobs, people who have 9-to-5 jobs, who can't say to their boss, "Oh, excuse me, I need to take a 3-hour lunch every Tuesday." People who don't have money, low-income people who don't have the time or the money, either one of those. And a lot of cultures aren't that interested in sitting around and talking to us for years. So I think that if you want to have a diverse practice, either socioeconomic, racial, I mean, any kind of diversity, you can't just do long-term therapy. It's really impossible. So please, I know because I've done this workshop like literally hundreds of times, I know that most of you are long-term therapists, and some of this is going to feel like, oh my gosh, this is like a Band-Aid, but it's not a Band-Aid. I've been doing this kind of work since I started being a therapist 35 years ago, and it really, really does work. And again, my practice is nice and diverse. I've got lots of different types of people because I'm able to show them short-term. The other thing is if you want to be on insurance panels, you at least need to let them know. I know the whole thing with Beacon's been coming up about how do you write your treatment plans. You're going to get in this short presentation exactly what to put on your treatment plans for Beacon or anything else you've been worried about. And if you ever do get audited, you could call me. I do consults on this all the time, 1 hour. I'll tell you what to put. You won't be stressed. You could go bike riding or something more fun than worrying about it. So let us start with your packet. We're going to do introduction. We're going to talk about assumptions. I'm going to talk about goaling and miracle questions and how to actually do this work. Solution-focused brief therapy is a way to work that is non-pathological. And I think this is really important, especially it is different than long-term therapy. My clients say, oh, I have depression. I mean, I'm depressed, they say. Oh, I'm depressed. And I'm immediately changing it to that they have depression. So again, I want to give you stuff you could do when you go back to your office today. Just doing that alone changes everything. If I am depressed, this is going to take a long time. If I have depression, I could take it and get rid of it. So it's already a way to look at that. It's really useful, community mental health, HMOs, and then I believe in private practice. Here's just a bibliography for later. A lot of the stuff I use is from Walter and Peller. So if you want one book, that's like my favorite book, and I've presented at conferences with them, and I love them. Solution focus is a way of thinking about people and change, about conversing with clients and constructing solutions interactively. So again, this is different than long-term therapy where the clients are kind of expecting you to have that transference, countertransference. Instead, it's about interactively working on things. Each of my clients I view as an individual. And what might work with them, I mean, everything intersects, but I really try to work with them about what would work. And when they say things to me like, wow, Fran, what you said last week, that really helped me, I always say to them, you know what, I didn't say that. You brought it up. I just kind of put, points on it, and then you went with it. And they're like, oh yeah, I guess I did. Instead of, my long-term therapist was always like, give me this little look, like, oh yeah, I'm so smart. But I never think I'm so smart. So my clients begin to say, this was really helpful, but I probably could have done a lot of this by myself. And I'm like, yep, that's what I want you to leave with, because we're working interactively. Oh, here's the assumptions. So the first thing is we focus on solutions and positives. So my practice stays really full, and I think it's because people want to hear this. You know when clients call you, and you do your quick 2 seconds to hook them in so they come and they pay you money and you go on ski vacations or whatever you want to do with this. I always tell them what I'm interested in is helping you figure out what's going on now and how to make it better in the future. So we're focusing on positives and possibilities. I don't say to them, what's been bothering you? What are you coming in for that's been dragging you down for however long or, whatever. I say we're going to work on how to make changes. So I'm introducing possibilities on the telephone right away. When I'm with clients, I target on what's working and not working. So a client comes in and they say, I can't get out of bed, I'm really depressed. And I would change the I'm really depressed to they have depression, but I won't do it the minute they say that. I wait at least part of the session. They say, I'm really depressed, I can't get out of bed, I have no friends. And then I immediately focus on, and remember, I talk slow when I'm a therapist. I'm talking fast because I'm presenting. But I do my therapist voice and slowness, and I say, but you somehow got out of bed to be here at 10 a.m. And for a lot of people, that's kind of early. I assume, what time did you have to get up? And they said, well, you know, I only live about a 10-minute drive from here. I said, so you at least had to get up 20 minutes ago? They go, well, actually, I got up an hour ago because, you know, I wanted to eat some breakfast. I said, you managed to get up, eat breakfast, and get here on time. And all of a sudden, from sitting like this, like, you know, that look of like, gosh, I can't do anything, they're looking up at me. And that was in the first 2 minutes of my session. So already I've introduced the possibility that they can get out of bed, they can get to appointments. And I'm telling you, I could have gone the other way. I could have said, well, I wouldn't, but I could have, God, that sounds really sad. Tell me more about it. Yeah, Fran, like, and of course they'll talk really slow too. Yeah, Fran, I can't get out of bed. I'm never able to go anywhere. I just lay in bed all day. I can't do anything. And I might say, or oh, or one of those things. And they say, yeah, it's really, really hard. And I say, wow, that sounds really difficult. And then they go off. And that's what we spend, and I mostly, and that sounds hard and stuff. And then they leave, and they come back, and we start again. You know, I say, well, how are you doing? Oh, it was, again, another really bad week. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. Instead, that doesn't happen with using this. They already know. They got out of bed. They showed up at 10 a.m. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm a therapist because I don't have to show up at 10 a.m. I mean, my dream is always getting to work at 11. I mean, I do go earlier because I want to make money, and some clients need to come in the morning. But, you know, I think that's really impressive. And then the next week I say to them, you know, how are things going since our session? And they'll say, you know, Fran, I know I could get here, but I can't do anything else. And then I talk about their job. I said, did you go to work? Oh, yeah, I go to work. Wow, how do you get to work on time? And then we talk about what they can do well. So you see the difference, right? It's just focusing on possibilities. As quickly as possible, focus on solution talk, which I already showed you. Exceptions to every problem. I can't get out of bed. Well, you showed up here at my office. Act as if change is happening all the time. Again, that example showed that. Assume that clients are competent and responsible, experts. Solutions are unique, and small changes lead to larger changes. And if it works, do more of it. Okay, so you had an appointment at 10. You set your alarm an hour before. Where else do you have to go this week? All right, could you do the same thing? It sounded like eating breakfast helped you. How did you manage to have food in your house? I mean, I even sometimes don't have food in my house for breakfast, and I'm not depressed at all. So I'm excited for her that she got to figure out how to have food in her house. And so we talk about what works. Do more of it. If it works a little, build on it. If nothing else works, experiment. Do any of you study about Milton Erickson? Some of you know. If you guys, those of you who are my grad students, you should be raising your hand. I taught you that. Milton Erickson was the person who did a lot of this work, and he's like the person who influenced the people who influenced me. And he would do really crazy stuff. When I was an intern and I was studying this, my supervisor would have me kind of take in my inner Milton Erickson. And if it doesn't work, I've done this one. Milton Erickson had a client where she was all anxious about something at work. So every time she couldn't fall back to sleep within 15 minutes, he had her get up and clean her house because she said her house was a mess. And I've had my clients clean toilets at 3 in the morning. And you know what happens after a few nights? Because you know how we don't have heat in our house in the winter, really, and it's really cold. Getting up at 3 in the morning to clean a toilet, my clients stayed in bed and stopped worrying. So if nothing else, have your clients clean toilets in the middle of the night. But I'll have them do really crazy things, like just, oh, I don't know, if it doesn't work, they can't meet people, they have no friends, so just pretend you're someone else. You know, just go out and, what have you always wanted to be? Well, I've always wanted to be a writer, like some of you are, I see with your books. So just go out and just when you're at the cafe, say to someone, oh, I'm writing my next book, and just say it. And then once you start becoming comfortable talking to people, they actually come in. My depressed client is laughing. Actually, I once did that. I was on a bus to meet my brother and his friends at a ski resort, and it was really boring. We had to wait like 2 hours for the bus, and I met somebody, and he was going there, and I was like bored, and I thought, you know what, because I always wish I was a writer, I'm going to pretend I'm a writer. And then we talked, and I decided, oh, I'm not going to do that. I just told him what I did, and that was it. So, thank God I did that. It turns out he was one of my brother's friends who was meeting the group. So I could imagine, my brother goes, oh yeah, I heard you met Eric on the bus. And I'm like, phew, I'm glad I wasn't a writer. But it was really kind of fun to think of it. And if I had been depressed, I would have not been depressed. Do you know what I mean? It's really a fun thing to do. So have your clients experiment. Here are some things that are important. I love these handouts that I put together, because then you could use these, keep them in your desk, put them on your chart, and then just use these words. Use the word instead. What do you want to do instead? In a process form, how will you be doing this? So my client comes in and he says, I really hate my job as a lawyer. I'm like, I'm hating this. I can't stand this. I'm stressed all the time. I don't get to see my family. I'm really, really upset. And he says, I want to change my job. And I said, well, what would you have to do? What would you be doing instead? And then he fixed out a whole plan, like he wouldn't go to work at 6 in the morning. But then I always use positive. Remember, I try not to use not. So I say, what would you be doing? And he says, I would go to work at 8 in the morning. I'd be home at 6 to have dinner with my kids and my partner. Okay, that sounds great. What else would you be doing? I have a client who, she's an immigrant. She thought she can get work here. She married somebody that was here, and then it didn't work out, and she was really brave and left him. And she's seeing me, and it's through insurance, and even her $10 copay is a lot. And I'm working about what would you like to do instead. And we're slowly working on this. Oh, by the way, brief therapy doesn't mean, it's good I'm thinking of her. Brief therapy doesn't mean a certain number of sessions. It's how you do each session. So I've been seeing her about a year now. And what she decided to do is she was going to go back to school. How will you do that? And instead of just going full charge ahead and not being able to work, she would work and go to school slowly. Because we talked about it, her rushing it would have been more stressful. So we talked about what does she want to do? What would it look like instead? Now, she's had a lot of stuff when she was younger, and we do touch into that, but it's more of how it's working for her today. That's what you're always focused on. Because as she's going to school, she's getting more confident. As she's working and not quitting work just to go to school, she's having money, so she's feeling more safe. So if anyone, by the way, if anyone has questions, I'm really good at staying focused. So you could always stop and say, Fran, I don't get that or whatever, but you'll need the mic, so just raise your hand if you have a question. So again, it's working on what do you want to do instead. And I asked her, how will you know you're on track? And she said, I know when I'm on track because she's saving money slowly, so she's not as worried about how she's going to pay rent. She's on track because she's going to classes And even though it's very, very slow, she knows because she's finishing one and then taking it. She's going to Berkeley Community College, finishing a class and taking another one with the goal of getting her AA. And then the other goal, then she's going to go transfer to a 4-year school, but slowly, so that she's not so stressed. Specifically, what will you be doing? Again, how will you be doing this? In the client's control, what will you be doing? Because a lot of people want to blame others. And of course, she's really mad at the man she's married, and we could blame him for a couple of years, but I just think it's important to blame him, and she gets angry, and we do anger stuff, and she cries, but still, how are you going to keep moving forward? When I talk about this at conferences or workshops, I know it sounds cold, but I get a lot of referrals from my clients. They know when you're warm. And my other background is actually a little longer than 20 years that I taught transpersonal psychology. So I taught at the Graduate School of Holistic Studies, for any of you who are my students, I remember, in the transpersonal department. And you could be extremely transpersonal, but just me being transpersonal, that woman I don't know how it would help her getting angry at this guy for dumping her and leaving her, and she didn't fight for her rights as, part of the money or alimony or whatever. And I think it's more important that she feels good every day, which is what she's doing. And the last thing is use the client's language. And I know most of you, I'm sure you just have to be really sensitive about it. When I'm working with the lawyer, or I work right near the University of California, so I get a lot of robotics and physics professors because they love this stuff. Because they usually they've tried to go to therapist, and the therapist looks at them deep in the eyes and says, I can't even do it when I'm standing up here, but how do you feel about that? And the way they feel is, I'm never coming back again. They like my work, so I see these robotics because I say, what are you thinking of right now? And then I get them deep, and of course, because you're a therapist, after a few sessions and they're grabbing the tissue box. I just had this tech guy. He's literally about 6'4", big guy, 35, and he grabbed the tissue box, and it was only 5 sessions, and I was like, oh yeah, this is great. So it doesn't mean you're not warm and they're not going to cry, but you're going to use the client's language. When I'm working with people with not a lot of education, I am so careful not to do what we in Berkeley call our smug talk. Of what people tease us about. I'm just really careful to be on the client's language. It's funny, my parents say, Franny, why do you curse sometimes? And it's because I also work with addicts. And when they say things like, oh, things are really blanked up, I'm not going to say, this seems quite difficult for you. I go, yeah, things seem really, I don't want to say it on the tape, but really blank. So using the client's language is really important. And I don't go and start talking hip-hop rap, because that's not what I'm going to do, but I do use my client's language. And they really like that. And I work with teenagers, and they love that I don't do this parent thing of using all big words. And I do try to learn their language. What the teenagers are into, I try to understand a little bit. If they tell me something, I write it on the note, and I look it up, and I ask them questions about it. So use client's language. It's really important, whether it's really, really the highest intellectual physics professors to people who maybe have a 4th grade education that you'll be seeing. So, okay, first question. Client sits down. I ask him, why are you here? I once went to psychoanalytic therapy when I was young, in my early 20s, when I was in my master's program, because I wanted to see if I really didn't like it as much as I thought I wasn't going to. And my therapist, I tried it for about 6 months, and she never asked me any of this. She's very, 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 it was at Mount Zion. Do you remember, everybody been trained there? Very psychoanalytic. And she just kind of always just stared at me as I sat down. And then I noticed always, when I talked about my mom, she would move a little bit. So I started talking about my mom, and I remember telling my mother this, and my mom's going, Fran, we have a good relationship. But I said, yeah, but my therapist doesn't like that. You know, it's like, so I said, I'm going to go into some stuff. I said, I think we're a little enmeshed. She goes, we're close. We're not enmeshed. I go, no, this is enmeshment. I'm learning about it, so I'm going to do this. But I would never do that with my clients. I would never stare at them. So what is your goal in coming here? And then I say, what would you like to do about it? So I'm really stressed out. You know, I have a client. I'll use his name because there's a lot of Muslim people named, but his name's Mohammed, and he said, I'm really stressed now. It keeps getting worse. I've been in this country for 10 years. It just, you know, with racism, I'm really stressed about this. And I say to him, what would you like to change about this? And we joke, and he makes a Trump joke or something. But I said, what would you, remember you, what would you like to do about this? What do you have control over? And because I'm a social, systemic, and Berkeley, et cetera. I mean, I do take larger systems into account. Obviously, it is difficult for him. And he's very, very, very dark-skinned. So not only does he get prejudice from being an Arab country, but also because people think he's African-American sometimes, so he gets it all. And we talk about it in terms of context and social context, but still, what could you do about it? What would you like to do? And what would you like to have happen instead? And what could you do instead? And these are in your packet, and I think these are great questions to just start with. And again, I would really encourage you, when you go back to your office, if it's a current client, you could try something like this. If it's a new client, wouldn't it be fun to just try it on somebody and see how much changes you have? Because another thing that happens is, as long-term, I know most of you are long-term therapists because I always have everybody raise their hand, and most of you are. I know that if I sat there, if I had 7 hours of clinical, oh, you have a question? No, just stretching. Okay. If I had 7 hours of clinical work, and my 9 a.m. came in with abuse from childhood, and I was like, oh no. The 10 a.m. had severe eating disorders, oh my gosh. 11 a.m. was Mohammed, and there's terrible racism. My 12 o'clock is the woman who's going to Berkeley Community. And if I was just doing deep, deep, deep work all day, I don't know how you guys could do that. I mean, without doing some solution, without doing some change. I would just get deeper and deeper, and I think I like taking career breaks, but I would need a lot more career breaks. And this is like, if you try this, you'll see, you'll be more interactive, you'll help them with changes. Clients will come in and they'll go out. It'll keep you more energized. Okay, we need the microphone though, so, because the video won't be able to do it. Wait, turn on the mic, yeah.
Well, okay,
You're good.
there it is. I'm just really curious, when you were talking about this gentleman, what did he say about what he would like about the change? Because,
Okay.
I mean, this is a bigger issue. But,
Okay, well,
just curious.
Of course, rant and rave about politics, but he's going and working on Get Out the Vote. Right now, I just started seeing him, and right before the school year started at Cal. So he's a post-grad, so I started seeing him like the end of August. He's going to go do that. Number two, he is talking to people about race, relationships, things like that. Even his friends who say, oh, we're colorblind, we don't notice, he's going and talking to them about it. Those are the two big things he's doing. Yeah.
I had the same question, what Mohammed would suggest for himself in this cultural context. Thank you.
Yeah, and so that's what I have him do. What could you do? What can't you do? He can't change things immediately, but right now the election is happening. He's being empowered. He's going and doing stuff around that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess Mohammed is generating
A little bit
lot
louder.
of questions.
Yeah.
I have a client that's similar to Mohammed, and the situation is this woman is living with people who she thought were allies, but They're very racist passive-aggressively. It's very difficult for her to find the solution because she is contemplating homelessness. She is not working. She has nowhere to go. And we're really stuck. We're really stuck in what is the solution in this situation. And I'm very mindful that right now the only solution is sleeping in a car with her child.
Okay, so what I would first do is try to take it off you having, because again, if you're working in an agency, because I worked at agencies, okay, in an agency, you know, we do more social work than clinical. First, I would take it off of you trying to find the solution. I would say to her, this is what I want you to do this week. It'd be really helpful to, remember, I want to find out when things work. When you're not stressed about your roommates, what's happening? Well, I'm always stressed. Well, just this week, notice if there's even 1 minute when you're not stressed. So she might say, well, you know, when my child and I are out, it's not stressful. It's not stressful when we're in our room. When we're sitting doing her homework, I'll pretend the kid's school-aged, even though you didn't say it. When we're doing the homework on the kitchen table, everyone seems to leave us alone. You know, so I would ask her to write down, literally, any minute even when things weren't so bad. And then, like it says in your handouts and on my slides, then you build on it. All right, so they don't bother you when you're doing your homework. Maybe you could make your meals into your homework and you could expand homework from 30 minutes to 2 hours. Maybe they don't bother you when you're in the bathroom giving your child a bath. Maybe that could be the time you bond instead of trying to sit on the couch where these other people are being horrendously racist or horrible to you. Maybe for now you will have to have play dates outside because that seemed to work for her when she's in the park. So just find out little bits. And the way I describe it to clients is they come in, I'll use your example. My living situation is horrible, 100%. Well, we figure out how many hours a day are you out? Well, is she working? Okay, let's say she's working 20 hours a week, which means she's out 30 hours because we got to go out, we got to commute. So we just cut down, there's 168 hours in a week, I think, right, guys? Is close. All right. What? I'll just say 168. But so we just cut it down to 168 minus 30, 138 hours. If we could do an hour and a half a night with the homework, that just cut it down. So what we end up with, instead of 100% of the problem, she leaves the first session with 25% of the problem. Do you know how excited clients are to have a 25% of the problem? Right? You know, it's like any other thing you could think that stresses you out. If you could cut it down, the problem's not so big. So that's what I would do. When is it working? When is it not working? Let's do more of what works. And then literally show her how she cut her problem down to 25%. I don't do it this excitedly, but like, awesome. You know, you are awesome. We're doing it. Good job. You know, so that's what I would do. And then one other question.
Well, I think you answered it already when I was thinking that when you asked the client, what do you want to do about this, or how do you want to change this? Mm-hmm. And they say something like, I don't know, that's why I'm here. What do you suggest?
So then I say to them, okay, and I do that same thing. I say, well, what's worked? When you haven't been stressed, depressed, anxious, sad, whatever our clients are coming in, or you haven't thought about the trauma, what's worked when you haven't thought about it? What have you been doing? What have you been saying? What have you been thinking instead? And then they tell me, and then I have them do more, then I have them do more of it. Yeah. Okay, were you all okay? That's that one. All right. So this is the one that so if you ever want to be famous, you know what you have to do. Most of you are MFTs in here. You know, all those theories we learned, Mnuchin, Satir, the Milan team, and Murray Bowen. I mean, everything's kind of the same, but everybody gets the new thing and they become famous. So with the miracle question, solution-focused brief therapy is a lot like cognitive behavioral therapy. It comes a lot from MRI, those of you who studied paradoxical and all this. But you've got to think of one thing to nail it so you'll be famous. You know, everybody the genograms from Murray Bowen or the structural interviews with Mnuchin, they thought of this. And this is the thing that is really fun, and I would so want you to try this. Whenever I get stuck with clients, I go right back to the miracle question. So some version of the miracle question is, all right, this is what I say to clients. If you went to sleep, did I just break, is it okay? If you went to sleep tonight and a miracle occurred and some little magic dust got sprinkled on you and you woke up and there was a miracle, I want you to tell me what it would be like. Can I make up your client? Is that okay? And even if it's just pretend, because it's probably not right. Okay, the first thing that would happen is I would wake up, and first of all, clients, even when they're, quote, stressed or depressed, which I would say they have stress stuff and they have some depressive stuff, you'll see they'll go from this or this to this. And because, again, those of us who do somatic work and body work, you know if you sit, I hate doing this even, ugh, it's yucky, but you know when you're like this, how you already feel better. You know, whenever I get stressed, if I just stop, that does it alone. So all of a sudden they're breathing, which to me is like awesome, because breathing is one of the biggest things on every treatment plan I try to have clients do. And then they say things like, well, I'd wake up, is it a daughter or a son? My son and I would be living in a really cute studio apartment by ourselves. I say, oh yeah, okay, so where would it be? Well, I work in Katati, so it would be like right near the university in one of those cute apartments, like off of College Avenue, in one of those cute apartments there. And, you know, what section would you live in? Oh, this section A, B, C, whatever. They would say, that's exactly where I want to live. Okay, so what would happen when you woke up? Well, I'd wake up and there would be food in the house. We wouldn't be scrambling like, oh no, we forgot to go shopping. Then what would happen? Well, instead of my job working at the university, at this low-level job, I would have an admin job, but I'd have more responsibility. And then what? And then we build this day, and it's really, really, she feels better. And then I say, what piece of that can you do now? Well, you know, I'm a good worker, and if my boss told me if I went back to school and got a few credits, maybe an AA, I can go move up and get this job as an admin assistant at Sonoma State. How would you have to do that? Well, Santa Rosa Junior College, I've looked at that before. Oh, you've already looked at that? Yeah, I kind of, one time I was at a friend's and she showed me how to go online, and wow, so you guys see what I'm doing, right? You're just like, you're building and she's getting excited, and you pick at least one piece of the miracle to do. Or clients say, I hate the way I feel all the time. Well, the miracle, what would happen? Well, you know, when I got up in the morning, I would actually go for a walk. Okay, and then what piece can we do? You know, I don't think I'd go for a walk in the morning, but I think I can manage it after work. So then what is their homework? Their homework is every day, and they're going to tell me, Fran, I'm going to go for an hour walk. And I'm going, an hour? Wow, that sounds real ambitious. And they say, well, okay, I'll try 20 minutes. I go, great. Because one of the rules of solution-focused brief therapy is keep it in small steps. So they go for a walk, and I say, how many times do you want to do it? Make it reasonable. And they say, okay, how about I go 3 times for 20 minutes? And then they come back, and I say, okay, that sounds really good. And then because I was also trained from MRI in their stuff, I say some kind of thing, well, don't overdo it. We want you to succeed. And often they come back and they go, Fran, I failed. I'm going, what happened? They go, I know it was only supposed to be 20, but it was such a nice day, and I took an extra 2 blocks, and I ended up doing it for 30. And I say, okay, well, let's just make sure next time you don't work too hard. And then, you know what happens. They do 30 minutes. They love it. They're on a walk. They meet a neighbor. She becomes the best friend. Now they have a walking buddy. They go for 2 hours. And then they meet a million friends, and then she doesn't need to see you anymore. And that's the end of that. She's not depressed, she's not stressed, she's in great shape, and you lost a client. But you know what, really, in my next life, I'm going to be psychoanalytic because I need so many clients, because my clients leave all the time. So thank God I present, and I'm outgoing, and I do those workshops, and you guys can pay me on how to build your business, because my clients keep leaving all the time because they go for walks and then their life changes. And I really believe that. I believe if you make, you guys, you know this, you've all done this in your life, where you've made one small change, and it's, you know, yeah, it's like, I love cooking, and it's like, one of my friends gave me, because I like Italian stuff, she gave me this Italian spice she got and didn't tell me how spicy it was. You're right, and one small thing changed everything, like ruined everything in my sauce, but, and then just had to, yeah, anyway, it was really bad. But also it could ruin things for good. I mean, it could do things for good. So one small change, honestly, my client walking, change, your client with this whole dream, it can change their life. So try the miracle question. You woke up, what you were doing differently, what would you be thinking differently, how other people would be relating to you, how other people would be relating to you, how would they act differently. If you feel better in the morning because you managed to figure out how to get food the night before and eat breakfast, you're going to be a lot better at your job because you're not going to be starving because you didn't have a bowl of cereal to eat. You know, if my client Mohammed, where he is, if he knows he's talking to people and he could get a friend to go make phone calls at a phone bank with him, he feels better at work. He's got an ally. It just one small changes from this miracle question will lead to more growth. Okay. So, keeping clients on track. I'm always asking them, how do you know this is working? Clients appreciate that because a lot of people have been to therapy or clinics, or, you know, like when I worked in community mental health, people coming in, trying to get stuff, and we really didn't have a lot of resources to keep checking up how are you on track. We'd be trying to help them, you know, leave, really, because we were always so booked. When I worked with drug and alcohol clients at hospitals, it was only about, you know, getting them out of the unit because it was so expensive and most people were trying to get out as quick as possible, and we just had to get them into meetings, but we couldn't do things about their job or the other parts of the miracle question. So your clients are going to appreciate you saying things like, you know, how do we know we're doing this right? And it is scary in the beginning because clients will directly ask you things like, you know, this couple I'm working with came in and said, hey, we were talking about how we're doing. How do you think we're doing? You know, what do you think? And then I say what I think, based on solution-focused CBT terms. You know, I say, you know, you two, I'll think of this one couple right now. I'll say, it seems like you two really care about each other and you really want to work hard to stay with each other. I think that both your jobs take up a lot of time, and as we've talked about before, you know, your goal about making your relationship as important as your job is important, but that's going to be how we're knowing you're on track, is that you're going to put as much energy into your relationship as you do into your jobs. I have a couple I just finished working with, two women that were married. They've been married a while. And one of them has this really high-powered job, and that was what the problem was. They adopted 2 children and special needs kids with lots of work, and they did it together. They were going to do it together, but the mom who's quit her job, and she's also got like degrees and all this stuff, but she quit her job, and the other mom is out all the time, and that was what the goal is. How do we know we're on track? when you aren't working so much and you don't feel so stressed having 100%, control of these kids? Well, what would you be doing differently? This mom said, I would actually go out and work part-time. Okay, who's going to take care of our kid? Well, you know what? I really could cut back on work. How could you do that? Well, I won't take this next project. I'll just make it up. She's an engineer. And, all right, what would that mean? Well, if I don't take this project, our bonuses are based on, the projects and completion. How much more would you lose? We might lose $20,000. They make enough money because this woman's makes way more money than any of us could ever imagine making. And, all right, well, what would that mean to your life? What could you do? What would you do instead? That's how we know they're on track. And so, again, making sure they stay on track. What would tell you that you were on track or making progress? It's pretty straightforward, and I ask these kind of questions. So that makes sense, too.